Yo, what up ProGuides family? Welcome back to a brand new video. My name is Nathan Ng and we're going to bring you guys another amazing video that is kind of necessary for everybody to learn. Today we're going to be talking about the basics of aiming in Valorant. With the release of Valorant right around the corner, we are aware of the influx of new players that will be coming shortly. So we wanted to help assist all of you players to get acclimated to such an amazing game. Even if you aren't a new player, stick around. You can learn something from this video, and even not, we could touch up on some forgotten knowledge. But before we get started, we have our question of the day. Do you think Sage is a must pick in Valorant? And if so, how could they change her pick rate? Because currently I believe she is easily a must pick in all games no matter what. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Now to get started, we're going to be talking about what makes Valorant's aiming mechanic unique compared to other games. First, you cannot move and shoot. Moving and shooting will result in major inaccuracies, so it's best to come to a stop before pulling that trigger. The next core mechanic is spray patterns. Every gun has a spray pattern, although for the first 12 or so bullets, the gun becomes unable to predict beforehand. One thing you can do, however, is to watch the sway of the barrel, as this will tell you which way the gun will turn. Although sometimes this trick can lead to more harm than good, since you'll be staring at your barrel instead of your enemies. Some ways of improving your spray pattern is to spray a full magazine on the target of the wall, trying to keep it into a condensed grouping. Know where your spray is off by seeing what rounds lands outside of your grouping and adjust accordingly. Now, every single weapon has a different spray pattern, so it's imperative that you're aware that not every weapon behaves the same. The Phantom and the Vandal are very similar, but they do have different recoil patterns. And weapons such as the Ares and Odins are going to be almost completely different from the Phantom and Vandal. Now, look at the moving and shooting. They'll be very inaccurate if you try to run and gun. Notice how there are bullets everywhere if you try to move and shoot. This introduces an aspect of counter-strafing. Counter-strafing is the usage of your strafe keys A and D to halt your momentum the second before you shoot. An example of counter-strafing would be holding your A key, and then when you see your target, you press your D key to halt your momentum and then take the shot while you're standing still. If you don't come from Counter-Strike, we recommend you focus a lot of time in trying to improve your counter-strafing, as this is one of the biggest mechanics in aiming. To practice counter-strafing, go into the practice range, and if you use your movement error on the crosshair settings, along with turning on your outer lines, this will tell you exactly where you'll be able to shoot. This is helpful for learning, but you don't always necessarily have to keep it on. Counter-strafing is one of the most prominent tools in pistol rounds. Because of the non-automatic weapons, it is easy to miss, and making yourself a harder to hit target by consistently moving is your best bet. So if you're struggling in pistol rounds, definitely practice counter-strafing a ton. Moving from staying alive by counter-strafing, we're going to be talking about the time to kill in Valorant. You might surely have noticed that you die very fast in this game, and some weapons like the Operator and Vandal have confirmed kills if you hit someone in the upper body and head respectively. With the time to kill being so low, you need to be very cautious of the way that you play your rounds. Playing them carelessly will get you killed over and over. It's very crucial to get yourself some headshots rather than to opt for running and gunning with an SMG. If you decide to only use your SMG, you are limiting your own skill cap by opting off to use for a poorer choice of weaponing. The rifles might be annoying to use at first, but you need to master them if you're ever going to get to the higher ranks in Valorant, as they have the lowest time to kill. There are a few ways to get accustomed to keeping your crosshair at the head level. One of the best ways is adapting and using the mechanics of crosshair placement. Yes, you have access to the sights in this game, but your crosshair will be playing just as an important role, as some weapons such as the pistol don't have any sights at all. So training crosshair placement can be extremely useful. You can always get better at the mechanic too, as it gets much more deeper than it appears on the surface. Crosshair placement for our newer players is introducing the boundary where you can almost always have your crosshair placed. Head level generally is the best to have it, and so you want to be conscious and aware of this at all times. Placing your crosshair at the head level at all times will effectively help you get much easier headshots. By cutting down the distance required to move your crosshair to their heads, you're going to be able to kind of consistently shoot them in the face. You only have to move your aim on the horizontal plane by doing this, as opposed to moving it on both the vertical and horizontal. Your hand naturally wants to move only horizontally, and moving vertically will be so awkward for most players to accomplish effectively. Now, there are a few ways to train crosshair placement. One of them would be just practicing and being aware of where your crosshair is at all times. Practice thinking about where your crosshair is and move where it should be. If you do this effectively, you will be able to notice yourself having to think about it less and less as more time goes on. The next thing you can do is to practice physically rather than mentally. This would be accomplished by going into the practice range and shooting bots while constantly keeping your crosshair at head level. This will help you build the muscle memory very quickly and give you a baseline of where you need to keep your crosshairs at all times. Also, we recommend that you switch your height once you get comfortable with normal elevation. Switching your verticality will allow you to practice different crosshair placements, as there is not just one elevation in the game, so why would you practice like there is? Alongside crosshair placement is a mechanic called pre-aiming. Pre-aiming is where you line up your crosshair at the perfect angle, and so when you peek, your crosshair is already at this level. Take this angle as an example. When you're attacking split mid, you should always line your crosshair up at the most predictable angle for an enemy to be playing. In this example, when switching out middle, you should always pre-aim ropes, and if the enemy is there, you'll have a much more easier time killing them. On the other end of the spectrum from pre-aiming is holding angles. Now there are a few ways to train crosshair placement, and one of these ways would be to practice and being aware of where your crosshair is at all times. Now what we see a lot of people do is that they will hold an angle directly with their crosshair basically hugging that same angle. Doing this will generally lead to you missing your shot because you don't have enough time to react when the enemy is actually switching the angle. Remember, not even all the pro players hold the tightest angles, and even when the best aimers in the world would give themselves some room for reaction time. So to accomplish this, you need to line your crosshair up a little bit to the side of an angle so when the enemy player walks directly into it, you don't have to move your crosshair all the way and you can just click. Now, we've been mostly talking about the rifles, but what about the AWP? The AWP is very good at securing easy kills, but it costs a ton of money. It can be used to save rounds by getting picks and securing the numbers advantage. This weapon is the most comparable to the AWP in Counter-Strike, but it's not exactly alike, aside from their nicknames I guess. It may share a lot of similarities, but this is not the exact same weapon. In Counter-Strike, it is easy to aggressively AWP because the recovery time is quicker. In Valorant, the operator is very difficult to use aggressively since the recovery time is so much longer. But where the operator lacks in aggressive peaks, it makes up at holding angles. If you are constantly playing passive with the operator, you are much more difficult to punish. By taking unnecessary risks, you risk giving up your operator that you spend a lot of money on. So make sure that you're holding angles passively and not over peeking into populated areas of the map. The operator is a very good weapon to pick up and use, but in my personal opinion, it lacks the opportunity and usefulness in aggressive scenarios, so it's not nearly as good as it is in some games. But if you want more useful information on the operator, we made an in-depth guide where you can look and find in the description below. Moving on from the operator, we have the heated debate of the Phantom versus the Vandal. These are both very solid weapons and they can both be used very effectively. The Vandal is a devastating long-range weapon that shines in its headshot and first accuracy potential. It feels slightly more RNG than the Phantom, and the spray can be a little bit more difficult to control when comparing it to the Phantom. The Phantom cannot one-shot headshot from longer ranges, but it is very effective for spraying and securing a quick kill. I personally buy the Phantom when the enemies are going through the rough times economically, or when I could just use it to push in as an attacker. It feels extremely strong while entering and clearing a site, as the recovery time is slightly better than the Vandal, and I have a lot more success transferring my spray from one target to another. So in the end, it's not about which rifle is better, it's about what you prefer and what you can use more reliably. We recommend you eventually learn how to use both. That way if you ever find yourself in a round with one or the other, it isn't extremely difficult to use the weapon that you have ended up with. We're going to be ending this video on a very big and very crucial topic known as peeking. In this game, when you expose yourself to an enemy or an angle, it is known as peeking. You need to learn when it's a good option to peek and when it's absolutely the worst thing to do. If you decide to peek an angle with no regard of your safety and you just will end up dying, it can be very detrimental for your teammates and make it much more harder to win rounds. If you're defending and you know that there are two players on the angle that you're about to peek, it may be best to fall back and wait for the support of your teammates, or maybe not even peek it at all. When on defense, if you don't over-peek, it forces the enemies to come to you, and if you're well enough established, it can be very difficult for the enemies to break through and take the site. As an attacker, it's also very important to know that taking unnecessary engagements where you can easily end up getting killed are just, well, generally bad ideas. Yes, taking risks is okay, but you gotta make sure that it matches the risk and reward. If you don't have enough time to go for a kill, generally, you shouldn't. You should wait for your team so you can coordinate a peek or just play with them. Keep in mind the potential of trading frags and the potential of your teammates actually being there to assist you. Knowing when and how to peek angles and general crosshair placement will help you guys in the long run if it comes to analyzing and improving your aim. Additionally, learning your spray patterns will also make you insanely good at playing alongside your other teammates as well as these other tactics. Hopefully, this video cleared the air around some mechanics that newer players or even experienced FPS players have forgotten or have never learned. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment letting us know why or tell us what we can do to improve our content. This has been Nathan Ng from ProGuides today, and I really enjoyed being your host. We hope that you guys gained some insightful knowledge from today's video, and as always, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace.
Once again, we will be offering coaching for Valorant very soon, so if you guys are very serious about getting better at the game, go to ProGuides.com and go find your pro coach right now. Alright guys, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, and good luck in your next few games.